Wow, I did not realize my mic was muted. Good thing that StreamYard gives me that notification. So what is going on, all you wonderful A-plusters out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again with another review for you. And even though the thumbnail and the title of the video suggest that we're just talking about the very last episode of season 3 of Superman and Lois, this is really going to be more of a review for Superman and Lois season 3 as a whole. And my overall thoughts on, just what worked about the season, what didn't work, and my overall thoughts. So let's start with this episode, though, of course, because, boy, was this episode kind of all over the place. In some ways, that's a great thing. In some ways, not so much. You know, it's bizarre too because this is an episode when you kind of just break down the writing of the episode, not the episode itself, just the writing. This is the most Flash-like episode I think we've had of Superman and Lois in terms of the shortcuts they kind of take. And I'll get a little more into that when I talk about the final bit of the episode. Basically, just to give you kind of a warning, it's going to sound at first like I didn't really like this episode, only because there's like a lot of flaws I'm going to be pointing out in mostly the beginning of this episode, or mostly in the beginning of my review for this episode, but I will get into the more positive aspects and the reason I thought this finale was really, really cool. So anyways, starting with the most basic thing to talk about that I don't really have much to talk about, which is Jonathan and the coach, because if you remember, Jonathan got the whole football season, got the team suspended from playing, so they lost their whole season. A lot of people were really pissed at Jonathan for that, because of him being on X Kryptonite. So Jonathan is like trying to make it up to the coach, and he keeps telling the coach, I'm going to make it up to you, I swear. And the coach is just like, it's not going to happen. And it leads to Jonathan being pushed around, and Jonathan being pushed around with a smile on his face, basically. And the punchline at the end is it looks like the coach is about to thank him for his hard work, but he just thanks some random person in the audience. Kind of funny, again, I've been saying this a lot when it came to the last few episodes, especially when it came to some of the teen drama aspects. But in this particular case, you could just kind of see this felt like kind of padding for the episode. Like they knew how they wanted to end the episode. They just needed to make sure they had enough things to fill the episode up so they could end it the way they did. And I feel like that was part of it. Something I did kind of like in the episode is Kyle and Chrissy are now pregnant and, about to have a kid. I actually really did like this part of the episode. It's good to see that, both Kyle and Lana, to extent, as I'll get a little more into her next, are both kind of being able to move on. And I think my favorite thing about this episode is when Kyle breaks this news to Lana, and just the family as a whole. I do like how they were very mature about it, and they're happy for him that Lana actually wants to spoil the heck out of his kid when he and Chrissy have him. And the way the episode ends, or not the episode itself ending, but the way their story kind of ends, is that Kyle does eventually propose to Chrissy in like a big crowd. And what I thought was kind of interesting is that despite it seeming like Lana had moved on, just like Kyle, there is kind of a weird look of what I kind of interpreted as jealousy. And I'm not sure if that was on purpose or maybe it was just, her being surprised and that's all there was to it. But I'm kind of wondering if that kind of goes to, we don't know how Kyle proposed to Lana. And I think it would be hilarious if we had a flashback in the next season that kind of reveals that his proposal to Lana was incredibly lame. And, the fact that he actually had kind of a beautiful proposal to Chrissy in this episode, maybe like that was what that look was about. I don't know. It'd be funny is all I'm trying to say. Not saying that's going to happen. I just think that would be kind of funny if that's what gets revealed. So, that I thought that storyline was pretty cute. We then get to the Lana and John Henry Irons side of things. So basically, John Henry Irons claims that there is an issue with Lana's home security. So he goes to check up on it. And basically, we find out later that this is just kind of used as an excuse to ask her out, which is, kind of a sweet moment between the two of them. They eventually do go out. And but before this happens, though, John Henry Irons is offered a deal by General Lane, basically to move to Metropolis and work for the DoD. And here we also see that Natalie is kind of interested in going to that DoD academy. That originally she was really pissed, when Sam Lane brought the idea of it up to her, and she was like really pissed, like, oh, I thought what you wanted to spend time with me, that kind of stuff. Anyways, now she actually kind of wants to go, specifically because Mateo is apparently attending there, which is something I really do hope we get some payoff for in the next season, because we never really know whether or not he takes up this deal. We know that it seems very likely that he is, and if that were the case, depending on, because I brought this up in Hero Report before, how I do believe that Superman and Lois are going to move to Metropolis for season 4. It would be a way where they could, keep John Henry Irons in the show, but not have to worry about paying him as a series regular, because, Metropolis is a much bigger city, and there are plenty of ways to write excuses for why he's not around when the city is under attack, especially with him having a family in New Orleans. You could, it would just be an easier way to have them still on the show, just not as a series regular, if that was the direction they wanted to take it, that is. But we do see the two of them get very intimate in the episode, which I thought was pretty awesome. And I'm curious to see if this if instead they actually end up staying in Smallville, and maybe the two of them become a couple, or if they try the long distance relationship thing and see how it goes for the two of them. Either way, I do ship the two of them. I actually do think they would make an incredible couple. Plus, I think Natalie and Sarah as sisters would be just absolutely adorable. So, I ship it. Why not? Then we get to the Clark and Lois part of this, and speaking of intimacy, we do finally see the two of them being intimate for the first time in a while, especially as they kind of brought up in previous episodes, Lois like just not really feeling like she would be up for it after her surgery, but the two of them do have a beautiful lovemaking scene. And it's just so funny, because normally when it comes to sex scenes, if I'm reviewing a show, I don't really bother talking about them, because most of the time they just don't add anything. And this is just one of those rare times where, like, I see it on screen and I'm actually kind of tearing up, and I'm like, wow, this is incredibly beautiful. So, great job, both writing and directing in that department there. Okay, so here we get to the most mixed part about the episode for me, the part where I think the writing was really, really bad, if I'm being honest. And it's too bad, because what it led to was something really cool. Lex and Bizarro, or should I say Doomsday. First of all, oh my gosh, was I looking forward to seeing how this was all going to go down. Because, we got to see the intimidating side of Lex Luthor, but to be able to control a monster like Doomsday, we needed to see the intelligent side of Lex Luthor. And we did not get that. What we got was the bad writing that, we were supposed to leave, what we as an audience were supposed to believe was intelligent Lex Luthor, but it wasn't. This is where the show takes a lot of shortcuts. I mentioned before, it kind of felt like The Flash in that sense, because I feel like if I saw this exact thing play out in an episode of The Flash, I would have zero issue with it. But it's Superman and Lois, so I kind of hold the show to a bit more of a standard than your typical CW superhero show. So when Lex just kind of finds Bizarro, Bizarro attacks Otis, and we think that Otis is dead, but he apparently survives Bizarro. He loses an ear, but he's alive. So okay, whatever. But Lex Luthor shoots Bizarro down with a kryptonite blaster thingy, and kills Bizarro. Then Bizarro comes back, and Lex somehow pieces together right then and there that every time he kills Bizarro, he comes back a little bit stronger. And then he tells Bizarro, hey, don't you want to, be indestructible and never have to die? And Bizarro's just like, okay, and just lets Lex Luthor kill him over and over and over and over again until he becomes Doomsday. I do like the Doomsday aspect, how they tie it in with Bizarro dying over and over, because that's kind of like his origin from the comic. You know, a Kryptonian baby that was killed over and over by Kryptonian scientists until it eventually became Doomsday. You know, I like that they kept that aspect of it. That was cool. I thought using Bizarro as that vessel for Doomsday was brilliant. But why? But like Bizarro going along with Lex Luthor's plan just working the way. Why does it work that way? Was Bizarro okay with this? Like, it made zero sense. I think partially we didn't really know what the full mental state of Bizarro was. I was under the assumption he was like a brain dead zombie. You know, the only thing he knew how to do was feed. But here we see that he clearly understands what Lex Luthor is proposing to him, and he like starts crying, and he's like, but why does he want to be indestructible? You know, why is he okay with Lex Luthor killing him over and over again? You know, I just feel there were so many better ways they could have written this episode. You know, maybe Lex Luthor you know, shoots him down with the X Kryptonite blaster and puts him into an X Kryptonite room, so literally he can't, you know, escape or something like that. There's no explanation for why, you know, Bizarro just goes along with this and becomes Doomsday. And I think that was the most disappointing aspect of the episode to me. But I didn't, like I said, it sounds like I'm really hating on the episode. I'm not. I just really think that could have been written so much better. Anyways, before I get to the best part of the episode, I have to get to one last thing I just personally wasn't a fan of in the episode, and that is that we had more of, you know, the Jordan Sarah drama between the two of them. Basically, Jordan just still being stubborn, refusing to apologize. And finally, you get Clark Kent calling him out on it, you know, just saying just because your feelings are hurt, it's not an excuse for you to be mean to someone. So he apologizes to Sarah. The two of them end on neutral ground. And I think like alone, I thought the scene itself was actually really good. In fact, I actually think I actually have no problems with this scene in general. This being in the finale, and then this just, you know, reminding me of how long they just milked the drama between the two of them. That was my issue with it, is that it reminded me of all that. And so I feel like this scene should have, either the drama should have waited until way later in the season to start, or they should have done this scene way earlier in the season. I feel like they just dragged on the drama. And I think the reason it bothers me so much, you know, because I feel like I look back at my other reviews for the season and I'm talking about like it being inconsistent with the characters. And I think maybe that's not true. Maybe I was just looking for reasons to hate this. And I think what it really comes down to, the real reason I don't like the drama aspects between Sarah and Jordan in this season is because, one, it happened all season long. And then two, it kind of sucks because they have great chemistry, and yet we see them fighting way more often than we see them as friends. And because of that, it makes me not want them to be friends. You know, so a scene like this where they end things on neutral ground, you know, I should be feeling something for that. I should be like, oh no. But like here, I'm just kind of like, good. I wish the season started out that way. You know, when you have characters with good chemistry, but they only argue with each other, it just makes you not care, honestly. And I think with the two of them, because there was just so much conflict between the two of them during season 2, and you look back at season 1, you know, when Jordan was keeping secrets from her, you know, you realize they've kind of spent way more time, like, you know, as like, I don't want to say like enemies, because obviously it's not like they ever hated each other or anything like that, but it's just you see them apart way more than you see them together, which sucks, because again, I think the chemistry between them kind of works. And I'm not saying they had to be a couple, but I just would have at least liked to see them actually work together as friends, you know, at some point during the season. You know, I don't like seeing friction between them the entire season, because it just makes me, again, not care. So that's what I think it just comes down to. I wish we could have gotten more of them as actual friends before we had drama. Anyways, The best part of the episode, the part that I'm sure all of you guys wanted me to talk about from the beginning because it's the only thing everyone's talking about, that fight between Superman and Doomsday. And yes, I am in agreement with everyone. That fight was epic, amazing, one of the best like action fight scenes I think I've seen in television. And it almost made me forget how dumb it was, the process of getting there. Like literally when I first finished this episode before rewatch, I guarantee you, if you were listening to this review of me my first time watching this episode, you would hear a completely different review, because this fight is so cool. It made me overlook the bad writing that got us there to begin with. But a second time on viewing, I was reminded of the bad writing, and this time watching the cool fight scene at the end wasn't enough to make me forget it this time. So this fight scene, I love it. I think that it never looks realistic, but it's never trying to. I do love that they go for animation like fluidity over realistic textures or anything like that. They want it to be fast paced, fun, and they nail it. I think the transitions from VFX shots to full CG shots, I think the transition is always really well done, really fluid. It never feels like you're going from a scene that's shot in studio to a completely CG scene. It always feels like it's just flowing together perfectly. And so not only were the VFXs great, but so was the CG, obviously. And then so was the editing. Like the editing for that whole fight to make it feel as smooth as it did and not make it feel like just inconsistent, like they were constantly going back and forth from one thing to another. It felt like just one beautiful fight scene. Kudos to all three of those departments. So yeah, to VFX, even cinematography. Okay, the way it was shot, to fit into those VFX shots, beautiful. Okay, so everything about the fight scene was great, is what I'm trying to get across. But yeah, it's what makes me enjoy the episode, but it's not good enough, unfortunately, to make me completely forget about the bad writing that got us there. And like I said, I expect this type of thing in something like The Flash. You just don't really tend to expect this from Superman and Lois. And I think the reason it kind of comes down to, I feel like what kind of happened with the writers. Now, if there is a writer working on the show and you just happen to listen to this review, please let me know if I'm correct or incorrect. I mean, I doubt that'll happen, but if it does happen, let me know. I think what happened, though, is that they knew there was a good chance they weren't going to get renewed for a fourth season. But when you look at a lot of the writers' tweets about, the process of working on the season, that they were really excited about Lex Luthor. And I think they really wanted to put their stamp on Lex Luthor, and they really wanted to put their stamp on Doomsday. They wanted to have a chance to do both those things before the series ended. So I think they wrote this season finale as as basically a series finale. I think they were expecting this to be the very last episode, is what I'm getting at. And it would make sense because then they were able to both get across Lex Luthor and get across Doomsday. So that's what I think they were going for. I'm glad they got renewed, so we get to see how this concludes. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the writers were like, oh no, we didn't expect to get renewed. How is Superman going to get out of this? How are we going to, write around the fact that most of the characters aren't returning the next season? I'm just curious. I love knowing about some behind the scenes things. So I hopefully if there's a DVD commentary, I really hope they kind of go over what it was that they were thinking when they were writing this, because I'm very curious if that was like their main goals. They just really wanted to get Lex Luthor and Doomsday across before the series ended. But yeah, not the best writing, but I kind of get it if that's what they were going for. So you have heard my thoughts on the episode. I need to get some water, and then we will talk about the season as a whole. Should probably mute myself while I drink. That's disgusting. Whew. Okay. Now then. So we talked about the episode. Now let's talk about the season, because I think there are some thoughts that I had that I'm sure have completely changed since I first watched this. So basically, I think the easiest way to talk about the season as a whole is to really just talk about the characters. So I'm going to start with I'm just going to go on the list of IMDb. So let's start with Natalie Irons, her overall character. So um, I did really like that they were able to find a way to have both her and her dad tie in to the Bruno Mannheim storyline. I actually do think that that was really well done. I wish we had a little bit more of her and Sarah, because there just were a lot of hints that they were going to be really like close in the beginning of the season, like they were really going to be buddy buddy. But you know, we never really saw too much of them together after like a certain amount of episodes. It kind of felt like. And plus, and by that too, I also mean I would have loved to see them, and then I'll get to this with Jonathan and Jordan too, because I would have loved to have seen more of the just the four of them doing their own like superhero stuff. I think, you know, I get that the show wants to be, you know, grounded in reality to an extent most of the time. So maybe that was why they really wanted like the four of them to really focus on the teen drama aspect. But there were some cool moments this season between her, Jonathan, and Sarah, and Jordan, of course, where they're just doing their own superhero stuff. Like the whole thing where they're getting Jonathan's truck back. I really liked that. I wish they could have had more of that scene or things like that, you know, that aspect of the show. I wish they could have found ways to fit that into, you know, the latter half of the season and later episodes. You know, have the four of them working together to find Mateo instead of it just being Natalie. And maybe that stuff we would have gotten. But again, if my theory is correct about why they ended the show the way they did, I think I think what might have happened is they just didn't have time to write them into like the overall bigger picture. So I think like just in terms of the four of them together, I wish they could have done a little more of the superhero aspect and not just the teen drama aspect. But yeah, with Natalie overall, I did really like what they did with her character, and I also really like kind of that growing relationship between her and Sam Lane. I it was something I didn't expect, but I thought made a lot of sense, and it was pretty cool. I'm very curious if we're going to get her or John Henry Irons in the next season. And yeah, so next character again on IMDb list. So next character is Sophia, or sorry, I almost read the actress's name. I meant to say Chrissy. So for her this season, I think what they gave her to do, like it was all just really her just exploring her relationship with Kyle. I think they got a lot more comedic with her, which I mean, she was always kind of a little bit comedic, you know, from the beginning, but now I feel like they've really kind of had they've really I guess I'll go with the Star Trek saying she really grew her beard this season. Like I feel like the writers finally kind of really understood her character this season. But yeah, I think her story with Kyle was kind of sweet at times. You know, it wasn't my favorite, like, you know, most exciting part of the season, obviously. But you know, when it was on, I didn't mind it. I thought it was cute. Now talking about Lana. Okay, so I do have some thoughts. I do like her being a mayor this season. I did like that she did some investigating on some of the other things that the town had been into because of the previous mayor. However, I feel like they should have explored that a little bit more, because it kind of felt like the mayor had was in some way like being paid off by Bruno Mannheim, or you know, it felt like there were some deals going on between the mayor and Bruno Mannheim, especially with you know, Pia killing the mayor at one point. So it's weird that that side of things never really got fully explored. It kind of feels like something that the writers almost forgot about. But I do love seeing her struggle with, you know, basically being a full-time mayor and trying to be a mom. And this season with her really demonstrated that she may have had too much on her plate, and she's not perfect, but she is trying and she's always getting better. There was also that really intense kind of slap moment between her and her daughter, which I thought was again a very well written aspect of the season. But you know, I do really like seeing her being someone who just constantly wants to improve herself over time. I just wish, again, they gave her more to do in the investigative side of things when it came to some of the things that the previous mayor was doing. Yeah. General Sam Lane this season I thought was really great. It is really funny because I've been recently today I got to introduce my brothers to the show Superman and Lois as we watched the first episode. And what's kind of funny is I totally forget how in the beginning of the show General Lane was kind of an asshole a little bit. So I do love seeing him now and how much he has really grown as a person, and how he, even when he kind of messes up and says the wrong thing, how he immediately tries to always make things right. Really enjoyed that. Next character, John Henry Irons. I loved him this season. He obviously is like one of my favorite characters on the show, and I love his overall like friendship with Clark Kent. I think the one disappointment for me was the lack of looking into John Henry Irons of that Earth. I thought they were going to give him a lot more to do in that area. But it kind of felt like something that they really teased at the end of the previous season, dug into a little bit at the beginning of this season, and then just completely dropped it. Like they forgot that John Henry Irons had this really important connection with Bruno Mannheim, and that just never gets brought up. There were implications that he might have been getting blackmailed by Bruno Mannheim or something, but like again, these implications never got explored more than that, which is too bad. I wish we could have learned more about the Superman and Lois Earth's John Henry Irons is all I'm saying. But yeah, with that being said, what they gave him to do the season was very enjoyable. I did love his struggles of being a dad and having a daughter who's in love with the son of the enemy. I thought that was something that could get really intense at times. I did like seeing him like actually kind of butt heads with both Clark Kent and Sam Lane at different times, which just made sense given their different like angles on what was going on with Bruno Mannheim. I really enjoyed, but yeah, overall. I really hope we still get him next season because I know he's not going to be a series regular, which really, really sucks. But I really hope the actor comes back and we get at least something with him next season. Like I'm hoping for at least like, because I know it probably won't be more than 3 episodes, but I'm hoping like at least half the season we get to see him. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Sarah Cushing. I just really didn't like her this season. I felt for her at times, definitely felt bad for her. And it's not like I didn't like her as a character. I just didn't care. The stories they gave around her were all just, she was just there to create drama. Even when it wasn't her fault, the drama writing was just all revolving around her. So every time she was on screen, it was always drama oriented. I think the only times I really liked her this season, when it was just her and her mother, I did think a lot of the moments between the two of them were really sweet. Obviously, not the slap moment between them. I think they were both terrible in that moment, obviously. But I do really like the moments where they try to cheer each other up. Sometimes they're not perfect at it, but they both really giving an effort. And I love those moments. But everything else, I just really didn't care, unfortunately. Next character is Kyle. What they gave him this season, for the most part, I thought was just fine. I did like seeing him and Jonathan Kent working together. Training Jonathan as a fireman. And I thought, the stuff with him, hazing him at first, but then treating him with a little, like being a little too nice to him then, and then, finally treating him like normal afterwards. I thought it was kind of a fun, storyline overall. But yeah, again, I do really like the stuff with him and Chrissy. And then I think I did really like the fact that he eventually pieced it together himself about Clark Kent being Superman. Even though he didn't fully guess it, he definitely came close. And I really liked that aspect. Felt bad, because no one likes to be the only person kind of left out. So I did kind of feel bad for him in that area. But I feel like he got over it really fast, thankfully. He had that moment where he was a dick to Chrissy, but I apologized immediately afterwards, thankfully. So good. I liked his character this season. Okay, before I get into the main Kent family, we gotta of course talk about Bruno Mannheim as a villain, and of course his spouse Pia. Between the two of them, I thought they were both absolutely brilliant. I love the way Pia was introduced as a fellow patient with Lois, and how it also wasn't even exactly a lie. I love the episode when it was revealed that they were together, and why it was that even Lois Lane wasn't able to figure that out. You either buy it or you don't. Me personally, I bought it. It made perfect sense to me. Overall, yes, I think that everything when it comes to the writing for Bruno Mannheim as a character was awesome. I liked how, even though he was like the villain, I like how we definitely sympathize with him. In fact, I do think that maybe that was the only misstep with him as a character. I feel like, you know, we they showed so many likable aspects of him, and it was only rare that he actually like kind of acted like a full villain. I feel like the times that he acted like a full villain were when he saw John Henry Irons and immediately, like, threatened his sister right off the bat, rather than trying to just talk to him into telling him to not look into his business or anything like that. So I think that, moments like that, and then man, because like what else? Like everything, like a lot of the scenes that we see him in, it's like he acts like someone who's constantly under surveillance because he's very careful with his wording, and because we see so much of that. And even when he, takes out the main, like, I can't remember his name, but the guy who was originally in charge of Intergating, even when he takes them out, um again, he's taking out other people who are criminals. So it's like you don't really think that much less of him, really. So what I'm trying to say is that I wish we caught more of Bruno Mannheim like at his worst, because I just want to know why Lois felt like this guy was her white whale. When, like, someone like other villains that she's faced, like Ali Alston, was way worse than him, to my opinion. I even think, to an extent, with what more, I mean, obviously, yeah, with what Morgan Edge was trying to do, he was worse than, Bruno Mannheim. So I wonder why this was the person that Lois Lane was incredibly obsessed with. That's kind of like my only concern about the writing around Bruno Mannheim, is that her obsession with trying to track him down, after we kind of get everything revealed about him. I just don't think we saw enough of his evil deeds for us to like kind of realize why she's trying to hunt him down. Some of it gets talked about, but not really shown like to the full extent. So I wish we got a little more of that. But yeah, overall, besides that, I thought he was an awesome villain. I thought the actor did an incredible job. And I love how we have two Walking Dead actors as villains this season. And then now we get to the Kent family. And, first talk about Jonathan Kent, because not too much to say. I think they gave him enough to do, so I was always invested. But they never gave him anything that really tied too much into the overall plot. So it was hard for me to care quite as much as I should, especially with the way they ended things. The way they ended things in the previous season, with implying that Jonathan was going to do a lot more in terms of the Superman aspect of the show. But we only really see him doing anything like superhero related when he's getting his truck back, if you want to call that superhero related. The only reason I do is because, like, Jordan was involved, and it involved, stealing a truck back from a bunch of criminals. So make of that what you will. But regardless, what they I thought there was going to be more. I'm not disappointed that there wasn't more Superman stuff with Jonathan's character. I'm just surprised there wasn't. Um, and I hope we do get to see like more of the firefighter aspect of his character in the next season. Again, if they move to Metropolis, I'm not sure how that would work. But if he remains a volunteer somehow in Metropolis, because like maybe Kyle puts in a good word for him, yeah, I'd be interested to see that. When it came to Jordan Kent this season, I thought the overall arc they gave him made a lot of sense. Again, teen drama aspect, I complained a lot about it when I talked about Sarah, so I won't talk about it too much with Jordan. I just, again, wish that between him and Sarah, we got more of them as friends and less of them fighting. When it comes to him and Jonathan, I do think that the conflict between the two of them that they would have every now and then definitely felt genuine, and I love how they never pondered on it too much. It just, would come for an episode or two and then it'd be gone. Specifically when it came to Jordan being a bit careless about the way he's been rescuing people and Jonathan calling him out on it. I do really like how it was handled between the two of them. And his arc of like overall, especially with him just not being someone who gets noticed a lot in school or who has always been kind of the loser at his previous school, it made sense that resisting the, fame or resisting the chance to be appreciated for your actions would be a challenge for him. That made total sense to me. And I enjoyed that part of the episode personally. Or episode, sorry, I meant to say season. I enjoyed that part of his character during this season, personally. I do hope we get to see him back as Superboy next season. I hope he learns his lesson. I hope we get consequences for some of his actions. Like what I thought they were going to do with Lex Luthor at the end of the season, I totally thought that Lex Luthor was going to find out through Jordan that Clark Kent was Superman. And hopefully something like that happens next season, because it would be great for him to grow as a better superhero by learning from doing something really like making the biggest mistake, which is exposing himself. And through that, he learns how to be a much better superhero later. But yeah, I hope they explore that. Lois and Clark, man. Elizabeth Tulloch, I keep saying this season after season, this woman needs an Emmy. Give an Emmy to Elizabeth Tulloch, because oh my gosh, she is amazing this season. I made that nitpick that I'm still sticking with, which is that I think that the makeup for her could have been done a little bit better when it came to her being really sick. I never really bought that she was sick, because she always has that TV. I call it the TV makeup, the makeup that everyone has to wear in order to look better on camera. Unfortunately, because of that, it wasn't until the very last episode where it even felt like she actually had cancer. That's my only nitpick. But when it comes to her character as a whole, the struggle she went through, it was heartbreaking at times, really hard to see, but that's a good thing because she really sold it as an actress. I think she did an absolute incredible job. And the show, again, with her performance, it made me care about things I never thought I would care about when it came to Superman and Lois. Like I kind of mentioned in the beginning of this video when I was talking about the episode, how the scene where it's the two of them being intimate, like normally I don't care that much about sex scenes, but like with this one in particular, with what led up to it, it was so beautiful. It almost gave me a teary eye. And a big part of that is her absolutely amazing performance that she's been giving this season. I think she had a very good arc of, having to learn when to exhaust herself and learning not to, then having to, realize she's going to be going through some of the biggest changes like anyone will ever have to face in their lives. But even while going through that, having to break certain news to Superman, because one thing I loved was that one episode where Clark was kind of in denial about, things not working out, and Lois having to be the one to really tell him that things may not be okay, and having to comfort, Clark, even though she's the one going through cancer. Like things like that this actress is able to pull off and just make me believe that Lois Lane is actually going through this. Absolutely amazing. Again, Tyler Hoechlin plays Clark Kent very well, plays Superman very well, and of course plays Kal-El very well. He does all three of these. This is why, if you watched our podcast on Sunday, you'll know that Indy and I went back and forth on our different favorite Supermans, but I still stand by Tyler Hoechlin being my personal favorite Superman. And this show is definitely why this season had some of his best performances. The way he could go from being Clark Kent to being Kal-El to being Superman, the way he can shift, all those different aspects of himself. Absolutely brilliant. Some examples being when he's, interviewing Bruno Mannheim and he's putting the pieces together himself. He walks into that room as Clark Kent, but he leaves that room as Kal-El as he pieces together everything in his head, and he, exposes, what Bruno's big secret was at that time. Him as Superman, the fact that, his instinct isn't to punch his way out of everything, but to try to talk, through these things. The reason I love that episode between him and John Henry Irons butting heads is because, again, I don't think any one of them were wrong in that situation. Both of their, reasons made sense, but I do love that we had that difference between the two of them. And I think that the way he went in as Superman, trying to talk to Bruno Mannheim and tell him, that things can work out if he complies, things like that. Loved it. Absolutely thought Tyler did a great job as all of them. And of course, I got to talk about my favorite, Kal-El moment, which is, of course, him entering the diner as Kal-El and leaving that diner as Clark Kent, which is, of course, when he's approaching. I totally forgot his name, but basically the Jonathan's girlfriend's dad, because he hit Jonathan. So he approaches him as Kal-El to let him know that we're talking now. This will not happen again, and basically telling him that if he does anything like this, he'll Lois will turn him into the sheriff, basically. And loved that he was able to show him in that business without actually making an ass of himself, without breaking anything, without showing too much aggression, just basically preventing him from swinging at him. I absolutely loved that moment. And then my favorite part was when he left the diner, and then this is what I mean when I said he went into that diner as Kal-El and he left that diner as Clark Kent, because as soon as he leaves, turns back into Clark Kent as he just kind of apologizes to everyone. Scenes like that, the way Tyler is able to go from one character to another and then to another. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. We have someone joining us today. Karan, I think that's how it's pronounced. Hey, what is up? But yeah, so that overall, I do think that's pretty much most of my thoughts. This season had some great moments, some great performances. The writing, when it was solid, it was amazing. Some of the best writing in the series. However, I do think that it does also have some of the worst writing in the series. And I think it kind of comes down to the stuff I just really didn't care about with the teen drama. And of course, that last bit with Lex Luthor and Doomsday, just the way we got to there, I thought was poorly written, even if it was an amazing, way to end the series in terms of a final battle. So overall, would I call this my favorite season? Probably, because even though I didn't love everything about the season, the fact that they, tried so many different things, they took chances on different aspects. I mean, when you're pitching a Superman and Lois show where Lois Lane gets cancer, that takes balls. All right. So that is not an easy thing to, be able to get someone interested in. So the fact that they were able to pull it off and that they took these chances, I gotta give them props for all this. So even when things didn't work, I still can't help but appreciate them for trying it. So, yes, good question. I think that's Adam in the chat asking me what I would grade this season. Okay, so in terms of characters, solid B plus. The only reason it doesn't get an A is because of kind of the weaker aspects of the teen drama. When it comes to story, when it came to the story, and I don't mean the plot specifically, I think this is the best written in terms of story, best written Superman and Lois. In terms of plot, not the best written overall in terms of plot, especially again going back to the Lex Luthor Doomsday stuff. So writing, you know what? Even despite that, I'm still giving it a solid A. Not perfect because of that ending bit. Not perfect, but solid A. But man, in terms of visual effects, editing, and what they've accomplished effects wise this season, I think this is the best Superman and Lois has ever looked. So A plus in that aspect. So I guess that would average out to an A if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so like 1A, a B minus, and an A plus. So yeah, I think that would average out to an A. So I'd give the season a solid A, which is probably what I would give season 1 and 2. Yeah, I'd say it's my favorite season though, of course, because I feel like, again, to reiterate, this season took chances, and I think it did a really good job of that. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed this season. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, definitely do so. I'm sure it'll be out on HBO Max in like the next week or two, so you can binge the entire season there. But thank you guys all for joining me. I'm going to be back in a couple hours to do one more stream. This one will be for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So if you want to join me at 6 o'clock, I will be there and I will be talking about Star Trek. I don't know if we have any Star Trek fans on this channel, but we're about to find out. But overall, guys, just solid season. But of course, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think. So definitely let me know your thoughts on the episode in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.